I was 8 days postpartum when my phone rang. My daughter was asleep on my chest. I hadn't showered in 2 days. I was still in the specific fog that only new mothers know, that state where your entire body has been rearranged and your brain is running on something that isn't quite sleep or wakefulness. The number was my manager's direct line. I almost didn't answer. I told myself it was probably nothing. A question about a handover document. A quick admin thing. I answered. His name was Patrick. He was 47. He had been my line manager for 3 years, and in that time I had always found him professionally polite, the kind of polite that has no warmth in it, just distance dressed up as manners. He told me the company was undertaking a restructure. He told me my role had been identified as redundant. He told me my employment would terminate at the end of my notice period, which, because I was on maternity leave, would be served as pay in lieu. He spoke for 4 minutes and 18 seconds. I know because my phone was still on the screen when I looked down after he hung up. My daughter slept through all of it. The first thing I felt was not anger. It was something colder than that. A kind of clarity. The feeling you get when something you half suspected is confirmed and you realize that the part of you that suspected it was right all along. I had been with the company for 6 years. I had been promoted twice. 8 months before my maternity leave began, I had led a project that increased the division's revenue by 14%. My manager had taken me for lunch to celebrate it. He had said, in front of 2 colleagues, that I was the best hire the team had made in a decade. 8 days after giving birth, he told me my role no longer existed. I put my daughter down carefully. I found a notepad. And I started writing. I am not a lawyer. But I had worked in HR-adjacent roles for long enough to know one thing with absolute certainty. You cannot make someone redundant while they are on maternity leave unless you can prove the redundancy is entirely genuine, that no suitable alternative role exists, and that the process was handled correctly. Patrick had called me without written notice. Without a formal consultation meeting. Without offering me any alternative positions. Without any of the procedural steps the law requires. He had just called me. On day 8. While my daughter slept on my chest. And he had assumed I would accept it. I spent the next 4 days reading employment law, tribunal case summaries, guidance documents, everything I could find about maternity discrimination, automatic unfair dismissal, and the specific protections that apply during statutory maternity leave. What I found was this: what had been done to me was not just unfair. It was unlawful. Specifically, provably, documentably unlawful. In the UK, employees on maternity leave are a protected class. Making them redundant without following the correct process, without offering suitable vacancies first, is automatic unfair dismissal. It does not require a length of service qualification. It does not require a complex legal argument. It just requires that it happened. And it had. I contacted an employment solicitor on day 5. She took my case on a no-win no-fee basis within 48 hours of our first call. Here is what I had. I had every performance review from 6 years of employment, all rated meets or exceeds expectations. I had the email from Patrick saying I was the best hire the team had made in a decade. I had my maternity leave confirmation documentation, signed by HR. I had the call log showing the date and time of Patrick's call, day 8 postpartum. And I had something else. 3 weeks after Patrick called me, a job listing appeared on the company's recruitment site. A role in my division. Different title. Almost identical responsibilities. They had made me redundant and then immediately advertised my role under a new name. My solicitor sent a letter before action. I did not see the response myself, she handled all communication from that point. But she told me the company's initial reply was dismissive. They maintained the redundancy was genuine. They cited a company-wide restructure. They sent an organization chart that had been, she noted, recently amended. She replied with the job listing. Timestamped. Archived. Their second response took 11 days. It was considerably less dismissive. They offered me a settlement. I am not going to state the amount. What I will say is that it was substantially more than my annual salary. It included a contribution to legal costs. It included a reference, a specific, agreed reference that could not be altered. My solicitor advised me it was a reasonable offer given the strength of the case. She also told me that if I wanted to proceed to tribunal, I likely would. I asked her, what would a tribunal award, in her experience, for a case like this? She told me. I took the settlement. I found out, through a contact who still worked there, that Patrick was put on a performance improvement plan 6 weeks after the settlement was signed. I found out, 4 months after that he had left the company. I don't know if those things were connected to what he did to me. I don't know if the company made the link explicit or buried it in something else. What I know is that he called me on day 8. He assumed I was too exhausted, too overwhelmed, too consumed by a newborn to fight back. He assumed wrong. My daughter is 2 now. She has no idea any of this happened. She was asleep when the call came, and she will be asleep, I hope, for many years to the consequences of it. But I think about that version of me, 8 days out of hospital, running on no sleep, holding a baby and a phone, and I want to tell her something. I want to tell her, write it down. Write all of it down. The date, the time, the exact words. Do not let the fog of those first weeks make you think you misheard or misunderstood. You didn't. And I want to say something to anyone listening who is in that position right now, or who has been, or who knows someone who is. The law exists for this exact situation. You do not have to be a lawyer to use it. You just have to be willing to pick up the phone to one. Patrick called me on day 8 because he thought I was at my most vulnerable. He was right. I was. What he didn't account for was that vulnerable and defeated are not the same thing. What he didn't account for was that I had spent 6 years building a paper trail without knowing I was building it. What he didn't account for was that I had a solicitor who answered her phone on a Saturday. Wrong move, Patrick. Wrong move. The settlement agreement was 41 pages. I read every one. The listing stayed up for 3 weeks. I screenshotted it every day. She had handled over 200 maternity discrimination cases. She had lost 4. The company's HR director had signed off on the termination call. She was also named in the claim. My daughter slept 12 hours the night the settlement was confirmed. First time she had ever done that. I chose to take it as a sign. I never went back to that office. I didn't need to. They fired me on my maternity leave. I made sure it cost them.